Hey, it's bombersweapon.com, man. I wanted to talk more. I've talked about this before, but the zombie effect. People don't know that people on psych drugs are technically zombies. What you don't know is psychiatry is fraud. It's always been fraud. They used to be mad scientists. But people who were crazy and fucking retarded, willing to hurt someone and do a lot of mutilation, that's what the old psychiatrists used to be. So that's how you got lobotomies. They used to drown people and bring them back from the dead. They would, drain the blood from their brains and fluids and all sorts of garbage. That's what psychiatry. And then they came up with the idea of sterilizing people and all sorts of bullshit. And petroleum byproducts came about, and then they tested those on people, putting them in them, and they find that there's psychoactive effects, and they came up with the chemical lobotomy. So Thorazine and Artane and whatever, all these old drugs, they're the same as today's drugs. And our forefathers had the same exact system set up as today, where the advertisements for these drugs were the same. I found some old ads on the internet, like magazines. Same exact side effects. In fact, they were more competent and more thorough. They listed more side effects than today. Not just tardive dystonia or dyskinesia, but they listed dystonia, Parkinsonism. They'd list all sorts of shit. They had the full list of side effects listed. And if you've ever seen a person with those conditions, man, it's like everything about their neuromuscular conditions destroyed. Their brain, their personality. They look like they have no teeth in their mouth because their fucking gums and all smacking around. It's like they lose the ability to control their bowels. They're crapping their pants. People don't know also that the hospitals used to be like that, where you would have whole rooms of people who had to wear diapers and couldn't hold their bowels anymore, couldn't even wipe their own butt, couldn't get up, couldn't talk, couldn't speak. And that's as recent as the 80s, the 1980s. They had hospitals like that in California and other places. I don't know where else. But my psychologist told me about that. They were doing that to people a variety of ways, including excessive shock treatments and torturing people. That was the only purpose. They all knew that they had he told me they all knew that it had no therapeutic purpose, but they were still doing it. And then they'd end up with rooms full of people like that they, for the life of them, had to take care of like that. They'd go and clean them, wipe their butts, fucking all that. They couldn't even move and talk anymore. And that was done because of the brain damage they inflicted. Now, the drugs are just the same, though. That's the one thing that's now remaining today. The brain is extremely resilient. I mean, they found you could have a human being with just their brainstem left, and they're still going to walk and talk. So when you have a human being being administered drug, they're basically being severely injured. You're tearing apart the animation of the brain. Okay, the animation, I mean, when you talk about life in the universe and physics, everything's got to be able to move and do its thing. Well, drugs interfere with that, completely stopping it. You put in particles in the receptors and you block everything. All of the stuff that the brain wants to do is now prevented. It's all being stopped by a drug, okay? And psychiatrists found that they can completely erase impulses, completely erase memories, completely erase sometimes the voices, so if you're having a voice, but the thing is, you're left with the brain that's partially functioning, and they're basically they would be dead if it weren't for the brain's resilience to stay alive with just a small part of it still there. I'm serious. And people, they become neurologically dead. That's what I'm really talking about. Their emotions their responses aren't happening, their triggers aren't there, their automatic stuff isn't there. I'm talking about triggers like your ability to arouse to stimuli, gone. Your ability to even have an emotional response like a laugh come after hearing something funny. Your brain's ability to even conjure that that's funny. Your brain's ability to even, you know, reality is erased. And sometimes, you know, when you have a person, reality is so strong, oh, it's seen as good. You can erase their reality and throw them out of whack with this, and then maybe that's better for them. That's the principles the psychiatrists are working on. Actually, it's really a profit principle. They don't actually care about the health of the person. They kill people, like I just said. They'll totally destroy them. And, you know, they'll hide the remains. That's how far they'll go. They'll cover it up. They'll cook the books. Okay? No one will ever do nothing. They all know it. No one's there to stop that. The state's unlimited power. Unfortunately, it's really weird these goddamn places still exist. It's fucking insane. It's fucking goddamn insane that these places still exist on our goddamn land to affect our citizens. Because it turns out mental illness isn't real for the most part. You know, this is just a way to label people, to put them in these places to do stuff to them, to get them up off the street like a prison system. The government prefers to imprison people than let them be on the streets. That's what it's about. They don't want to give them housing. They don't want to give them education. They don't want to give them a sound upbringing. That's not what our government is. It's throwing people away. The rich get everything they need, but not the poor. And who cares if occasionally a rich person has some serious problem like autism or whatever? I don't give a fuck. The fact of the matter, these people are still being thrown away in these places. And they diagnose for legal reasons and money reasons. You end up with the diagnosis simple. Okay, my psychologist also agreed with me on this. He's a fucking brilliant dude. He's on the side saying that the DSM-5 is a total fucking farce. And the problem is that now that they have all these new diagnoses, now they're just going to start prescribing more drugs. More drugs. That's all they're going to do. They're not going to help people. It's all for profit. And that's making these pharmaceutical companies very rich. That's what he told me. He's going to a thing at UC Davis where they're going to discuss some of that crap. Because there's a lot of smart people out there against that shit. Unfortunately, that's what's going on. And what is profitable is not the best for people. But the investors and the wealthy people in our country make a lot of money off of it. And that's what the structure of everything is about in our country. So it's not profitable to give someone a free house or a good education or the best health care. It's profitable to patent a treatment and hold the exclusive rights to it, and to sell that and get everyone using it in place of other treatments, in place of people being people that develop and live and have, you know, lots of diversity. So they'll give these drugs to people just to execute them mentally and to induce concussions. Literally, you're given a chemical lobotomy to put you to sleep. And if you step out of line and the staff don't like what you're doing, the drug it seriously repatterns the brain in an instant. They'll give you a shot, strap you down into a restraint bed and fucking like pull your pants down and give you a shot. The drug instantaneously removes whatever you were doing before. And now you might be completely conked out, unable to even focus on what you're doing before. You don't end up, I mean, that's a good way to stop a person from calling an attorney, going to file a lawsuit, you know. That's a good way of making them not want to fight their way out of there, or even go and attack a staff for beating them up or harassing them. So, you have people who, you know, they could be legitimately in danger of their lives being drug dead so they can't fight back. And that's what's going on. These are prisons. These are prison facilities, not treatment facilities. In another video, I was saying this too. The doctors in these places, they're not even your doctor. They're just a bitch running the unit. Here you're stuck with their faggot ass. All the staff are fucking assholes. They're to just 20 of them line up at your door to beat you up and drug you and shit. And you didn't even do anything type everyday situation. You're in a dangerous situation in these places. You'll be there 20 years. I mean, the rule is you're a danger. You could be executed because you know, our goal is to protect society from you. And so that's all. There's a bunch of loopholes in that. That's to be able to throw people away for society, and they have the false justification. So the false justification is making you look dangerous and crazy, but they don't even have scientific tests like an fMRI. They don't do nothing to prove that you're crazy first. In fact, everything's based on what they feel inside, okay? And that's it. And so if they feel... Now, in the legal system, it's worse because they'll use your past conviction and say, oh, you're convicted. I mean, you're dangerous. And that's what all the statutes are based on. So it's a presumption you're dangerous and you're ill. Even though you have no signs of any of the conditions, they'll give you the drugs which induce these conditions. And then oh, here's another thing. Nerve paralyzers. So a lot of these drugs classify themselves as something or other, like antipsychotic. That's one of the classification. Or antidepressant. Well, secretly, they're not really any of those things. And I'm telling you, there's documentation. I just told you one. Two, I told you nerve paralyzer. Well, actually, the drugs are secretly nerve paralyzers that actually just destabilize the nerves and prevent a person from functioning. The other thing is they're called chemical lobotomizers because they'll damage the brain with chemicals and leave the person unable to function in whatever way. And then they'll end up with the zombie thing, like I'm saying. They're literally zombies walking around with only part of their brain working. School shootings result in that. From that, you have people who go on rampages because of that. The drugs are known to make people bipolar, manic, having voices from the drugs, all that stuff. Then psychic energizers. The old names for this were chemical lobotomizer or major tranquilizer. And then you had psychic energizer, and then you had minor tranquilizers. Those are the first terms for these drugs. And then over time, through marketing, they renamed them to antipsychotics and antidepressants and anticonvulsants and mood stabilizers and shit. So, anyway, the psychic energizers, interesting. Like I told you also, these were petroleum byproducts, right? So that's in a book, Robert Whitaker's Anatomy of an Epidemic, and this is all the history of this. So they found they could take these byproducts and profit off of them and use them in people, and they interfere with cellular function. And that's true. They do that. They're not cures, they're not treatments, but they have an ability to tweak people with chemicals. So the psychic energizers were seen to actually tweak you enough to make it sing and dance and act all loopy and manic and stuff. And so they started selling those as antidepressants. And psychic energizers, that's where they're actually causing your brain to do different stuff. But it's taking from you your original emotions and your reality, and it's forcing something else that's not reality. So, I mean, you're damaging the brain there to get that effect. And the other thing is, the neurologist was recently saying, okay, that today's medicine, they're hiding all the side effects. And one of the things is they're saying they're not like openly telling the people that the side effects are permanent and will not just go away by discontinuing the drug, and that it's not a chance of that happening, it's almost guaranteed. And I was reading an article about that on Man in America. So they're just blatantly lying to everybody that the effects of the drugs aren't permanent in terms of the side effects that are actually injuries, and you end up with tardive conditions. And when I was first in the system, they didn't tell me all the side effects. They didn't tell me that there was fucking dystonia. They didn't tell me that I get brain damage. They didn't tell me that the drug caused mania. They didn't tell me that, you know, there could be voices. I never had voices, but there could be voices. They didn't tell me I'd have Parkinsonism and that my brain would just be destroyed by it. They didn't tell me that. They didn't say anything like that because they're fucking liars. And they're making money off of me. They could have just sent me to school and had a counselor and gave me a free apartment, and I didn't even need no help. I just needed a year of like getting me from my abusive family into adulthood. And that's all I needed. They didn't have that system. So they don't really have a system of taking care of your problem. They have a system of drugging you and putting you down to where you're brain dead and you can't get out of bed in the morning anymore. And you gain 150 pounds and your body stretches out and you're all fucking wasted. That's what they have, is a system of deliberately hurting people. Zyprexa, for example, guaranteed that you're gaining weight. Okay? And they know that. It causes diabetes. And it's equivalent of adding 150 calories to your daily intake. And that you're going to definitely, almost everyone gets diabetes off of it. And that the few who don't, what happened to them on the drug was very sick and dangerous. You know, they'll eventually get off the drug, you know, hopefully. I was 130 pounds. I shot up to 260. And I kept going up until they took me off the damn drug. And I didn't even, I mean, anyway. And they completely fucked up everything I was doing. I used to be like, only drink water, didn't drink soda, hardly ate anything, wouldn't eat dessert. This fucking drug altered my brain so that I had no executive control not to eat whatever was around me. And then they put me in their system. It's like as if my whole personality was taken away. And then they put in a new personality, which was a zombie that did whatever, you know, including drinking sodas because they sold them there at the hospital. When I had this rule of, for years, not drinking soda. I drank exclusively bottled water. And I would also fast a lot for 2 weeks at a time. I was practicing self-control and stuff a lot. And I saw people eating and it was gross, you know. I saw how they had no control and how I was a little on the health nut side, and I wouldn't even use pharmaceuticals at all. I wouldn't take a pain med. I didn't need it. I was totally on the ball on that. And all of a sudden here I am taking pain meds and shit and unable to, you know, they got me drugged so much I can't do anything but take the drugs they're giving me. And I'm sitting here drinking sodas like crazy. They just completely damaged my brain. Everything smart that I had before, all my intelligence gone. All my executive control gone. That's what drugs do. You become a practical zombie. You can't even remember your old self. That's how fucking serious it is. You can't trace the injuries. Unless you go back and you know about what to look for, then you're all like, holy shit. So all those troubles I suddenly started to have were the drugs. God damn. And you're so angry all of a sudden. Whereas before you had everything you're doing was your own brain and you were in control. Now you weren't. And everything was just being taken from you. You didn't even get input into your own life. You didn't do any of it yourself. It was all them doing it and leading you around, keeping you locked down and in their control, unable to make choices. Your memories, you weren't forming your own memories. You weren't making your own choices. A drug was doing it. Or they were making you make choices when you couldn't even make choices, but everything, it was just taken from you, robbed. Because you can't make choices on drugs when 80% of your synapses are fucking sabotaged. Because that's what Zyprexa does. It goes in and blocks 80% of receptor sites in different parts of the synapses. Different fucking sites. Okay, like dopamine. And what that does, it just stops the connection, just blocks it. The signals aren't going through. You're all tranquilized. And it that erases impulses from your brain, so it can't come together to be consciousness and control. And you're stuck like that. And the damage, just cascading failures from that point. Everything stops forming the way it's supposed to. You can, receptor sites can die off. You can grow more receptor sites. You can, the whole brain just starts reshaping itself atomically around these fucking chemicals. So much of your brain is lost, 3% to 10%, depending on the drug and how long you're on it. And no one's to say that the brain's growing right when you're on the drug either. So any new brain or changes happening, I mean, it's really serious. I mean, you could... I've been concerned that some of the diagrams of some of them, they've got some new ideas for meds where they're like, oh, we could grow a bunch of new receptors with this new chemical, and fucking like, you know, what are you doing with those receptors if the brain didn't incorporate them on its own and the drug did it? So are those receptors really doing anything, or is it just a new way to tranquilize a person and prevent their emotions from coming through, and that, you know, the brain isn't going to be experiencing its reality on, you know, in the diverse manner that it's supposed to? So that's one of the problems. So we're just making zombies and saying, oh, well, that's good. We got the new blockbuster treatment here. I mean, we didn't treat nothing. We didn't keep them intact and whole. We just radically fucked them up. But that's a treatment. I mean, they're not feeling them old selves because we removed it all. They can't experience themselves. There's really scary treatments out there. There's this new PTSD treatment that uses an injection into your fucking neck, and instantaneously things just disappear in your brain. That's scary fucking shit, man. And it's so damn... I mean, they're calling it a great success when your brain is just gone and you can't even remember yourself, and you're just acting like you're so... Oh God, the wife that was with this guy who had it done is crazy as bitch, dude. It's like, he's Franken dude now. And he's like, oh yeah, I feel better. And she's like, yeah, man. He's like, weird. He's like, all of a sudden he's better. He's not angry now. And fucking... It's like, what the flying fuck did they just do to this guy to fuck him up? They don't even know. I mean, they can't say what they removed. That's the only thing that would be there, is they remove stuff from his brain. Because that's the only thing that would result in a personality change. If you damage the brain, prevent something from working in the brain, then you get a personality change. It's fucking sick. It's gross. That's no better than a lobotomy, man. To me, because, I mean, that's not a treatment. They're not even giving people alternatives to that who don't want that shit. They want the old-fashioned, I want to go to school for 5 years and I want to have a therapist walk me through it, and I want to have that so that I work on these things myself. Right? They don't even have that anymore. They had it for a long time. They don't even have therapy anymore. And, you know, any therapist will always be sitting there trying to they'll refer you out to a doctor to get you on drugs. That's what's fucking weird. And so the option of drugs and other treatments are very dangerous, man. And they're talking about this new MRI machine that actually take out and put in memories. And they've done it in lab rats already. Taking out memories and put them in. That's fucking dangerous shit too. You're modifying people. Just imagine what you could do. You just take out their soul. Reprogram them. They won't even know who they were before. And the government will do that by force, because the government is powerful and military backed, man. They'll do whatever the fuck they want to people, and you're not going to stop it. The constitutional rights aren't there. The judges aren't there enforcing it, man. They're letting all this shit go on. So that's what happened to me, man. That's the only reason I'm here today, is because I'm all beat up and fucked up. And the only reason I'm beat up and fucked up is because of them and their shit. This was going on before I was born. This was going on before I got into their system, man. It's like I'm a fucking lab rat with a bunch of goddamn electrodes poked into my brain. I'm a human being that was supposed to be successful and have a life and go to school and fucking have a wife and kid. But how could I have that if they fucked me up